everybody's favorite genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist has saved the world many times over.
Well, you're not wrong.
Both by himself and alongside his fellow Avengers. But even if you're aligned with good, it doesn't mean you always do good work or make the right choices. Tony Stark has proven that as much as he's a superhero, he can also be a supervillain. Before we begin, remember to click the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future videos. It's free! Who doesn't love free? When he cloned Thor. You know how the story goes. A universe-shattering war broke out after the New Mutants, who are untrained superheroes, inadvertently caused the death of 600 civilians. Public opinion of superheroes turned against them, and sides were drawn around the Superhero Registration Act. The Registration Act mandated that all superheroes must register with the government. Iron Man and his followers believed the SRA was a way of legitimizing their work. But Captain America and his team saw it as a form of indentured servitude and a severe invasion of privacy, since registered heroes were required to reveal their real names. During Civil War, the tide of history was on Tony Stark's side in our post-9/11 world. In trying to do the right thing, Tony made a number of highly questionable decisions.
Give me a break!
One was using a strand of Thor's hair, which he'd saved after the first ever meeting of the Avengers, to clone the believed to be dead superhero.
No hard feelings, Point Break. You got a mean swing.
Not only would the real Thor have seen this as a violation, this construction of genetic and cybernetic material lacked the Asgardians' moral center. During one of the most brutal fights of the war, the clone showed up, kicked pretty much all the butts, and then blew a hole straight through the chest of Bill Foster, aka Goliath, killing him in an instant. When he co-founded the Illuminati. There's no denying that this one falls under the banner of more than just Tony Stark, but the whole thing was his idea. Sometime after the Skrull-Kree War, which nearly destroyed the Earth, it occurred to Iron Man that had the superheroes of the world worked closer together, sharing information and resources, they might have stopped the war before it began.
Isn't that the why we fight? So we can end the fight? So we get to go home?
So he called together a meeting of himself, Doctor Strange, Reed Richards, Professor X, Black Bolt, Namor, and Black Panther, and the group met privately in Wakanda. There, he proposed his idea. Anytime a really big issue came up that could affect the entire world, they would call a meeting and collaborate to find the best possible solution. Dubbed the Illuminati, they would operate in secret, known only to one another for years. It sounds okay on the surface, but it would only be a matter of time until an issue came up that would require them to undertake actions with very sketchy morals. And they would be performing these unilateral actions while keeping everyone they know and love in the dark. In the words of Black Panther, who refused to sign on with the group, you just decided all by yourselves that you are the Earth's protectors, and that you, and only you, not your teammates and family, are trustworthy enough to include in the process. When he built a superhero prison. Back when Tony Stark, Reed Richards, and Hank Pym were supporting the Superhero Registration Act, they brainstormed a list of big ideas. Supposedly, there were 100 of these ideas, and each one was meant to make the world a better place that people could feel safe in, with ideas for things like the environment, global poverty, defense, and more. The only one of these ideas that's ever been identified as such is number 42, which was a massive prison built in the negative zone, that weird alternate dimension that the Fantastic Four visit, to hold supervillains.
I'm doing what has to be done.
The problem was that once the prison was built, Iron Man and his super-registered pals used it to hold unregistered superheroes and known villains. Captain America led a massive prison break at the climax of the Civil War, with every captured hero, and even some of the villains, escaping to join Cap's side of the fight. After the war ended, they abandoned Prison 42. The law may have been on his side during the war, but it's hard to get past the feeling that putting your friends in a maximum security prison in another dimension, which Susan Storm described best as a hellhole, is just a crummy thing to do. Very few of the people in prison there actually deserved it. The time he kidnapped an Inhuman. One of the most recent examples of Tony Stark being bad comes from Marvel's famous Civil War storyline. At the outset of Civil War II, a new Inhuman surfaced with the ability to see the future. This new hero, a college student named Ulysses, was immediately added to the Inhuman society, but Tony Stark had a hard time accepting Ulysses' predictions at face value. No one would listen to his concerns, which were based on the fear that Ulysses' own opinions and biases could alter his visions. When Tony's best friend was killed on a mission that was inspired by a new vision from Ulysses, the situation was more than he could stand. So he did the logical thing. Logical, that is, if you're Tony Stark. He broke into the Inhuman city Attilan and absconded with Ulysses against the young man's will. It provoked an international incident, naturally.
I don't care.
But all Tony cared about was figuring out how Ulysses' brain worked. He ran some scans on the boy and tried to provoke a vision by frightening him.
You seem a little defensive.
Predictably, it didn't end well for Iron Man, who was stalked by a huge group of his friends. It's mostly played for laughs in Civil War II, but you can't deny that taking someone against their will is not just wrong, it's against the law. When he let himself be evil. Once upon a time, a bunch of heroes and villains had their personalities inverted. Everyone took on traits that were opposite of those they'd always had. The X-Men decided that mutants should drop all that trying to live peacefully with humans business in favor of ruling over them. Deadpool became a pacifist called Zenpool.
What the language?
Dr. Doom tried to turn Latveria into a democracy. Tony Stark was among those affected, and the result was a return to the greedy capitalist he'd been before becoming a hero.
Apparently, I'm volatile, self-obsessed, don't play well with others.
He moved to San Francisco and modified the extremist virus into a drug, accessible via a smartphone app, that anyone could use to make them beautiful, highly intelligent, in perfect health, and forever young. Much to everyone's surprise, at the end of the app's first day, its trial period was over. But if people wanted to continue their extremist-enhanced lives, they would have to pay Stark Industries $99.99 a day. Admittedly, most of this wasn't his fault. The magic spell that was cast was beyond his control. When a counterspell was activated, Tony used a shield in his suit to protect himself from reverting to normal. That was his fault. This new, immoral Tony Stark's adventures were chronicled in the pages of Superior Iron Man, a 9-issue. It ended when Pepper Potts exposed his activities to the public. When he was an arms dealer. If not for the original Iron Man movie, most fans might not even remember this. Before he became Iron Man, Tony Stark manufactured and sold advanced weaponry to anyone who'd buy.
What do you say to your other nickname, the Merchant of Death?
That's not bad.
The business was started by his father, Howard Stark. When his parents were killed in a car accident, Tony inherited the company. Some might argue that selling weapons is evil in and of itself. Everyone else might at least agree that not discriminating in who you sell them to can only lead to malevolent consequences. To be fair, Tony also expanded Stark Industries into a technology manufacturer of all kinds, such as personal electronics and forward-thinking scientific advancements. Despite this, weapons sales continued, and it was during one of these sales in an active war zone that he had the famous accident that led to his captivity and subsequent construction of his first Iron Man suit. If you can believe it, even this life-altering incident didn't cause him to see the light. Tony actually planned to manufacture his Iron Man suit en masse and sell it to the public. Imagine the devastation that could have been caused. Fortunately, an incident of theft finally made him realize that millions of people walking around in their own weaponized suits of armor might not be the bestest idea ever. When he was a cyborg killing machine. A 2011 crossover miniseries, and some requisite tie-ins, introduced Marvel fans to Earth 11326. This miniseries was Age of X, a reality where mutants were considered dangerous and evil, and had been hunted to near extinction. Even superheroes in the Earth 616 storyline who would be defending mutants against persecution hated them. Their once defenders joined the hunt. A team of Avengers on Earth 11326 was tasked with stopping mutant threats. One of them was a character who called himself the Steel Corpse. This was Tony Stark, a mysterious figure whose body had been bonded to his armor via some kind of disease, which of course mutants were blamed for. Making matters worse, the suit was literally eating him, consuming his body thanks to said disease. The Steel Corpse spoke in an odd fashion.
I had strings, but now I'm free.
Combining both a computerized voice with a human one, resulting in a particularly dark sense of humor. By the time Age of X took place, he was already more machine than man, being described in the comics as unstable. That's an understatement to say the least. In his first appearance, just after Captain America had arrested a mutant, Tony forewent justice and killed the guy on the spot. When he destroyed alternate Earths. Over several years, writer Jonathan Hickman conceived of and executed a long-term storyline that found alternate Earths throughout the multiverse colliding with one another, resulting in the annihilation of both. Over and over it happened, and it wasn't long before Earth 616 was threatened by one of these incursions, as they were dubbed. The Illuminati, faced with an impossible choice, had to figure out what to do when the incursions threatened Earth. What could they do but try to preserve their own Earth, even if it meant destroying the one that it was on a collision course with? But how could they possibly destroy an entire world and the billions of innocent people living there? To protect themselves and their world, they chose genocide. It was a fateful decision that led to the collapse of the multiverse and the events of Secret Wars. How many Earths did they destroy to save their own? It's not clear if Marvel ever put a number to it, but it's safe to assume that it's somewhere over 10. Quite possibly a lot over 10. Maybe they did what they had to do. But Iron Man certainly didn't act alone. As far as villainy goes, destroying entire inhabited planets is pretty hard to top.
Well, you're not wrong.
When he had supervillains hunt his friends. We have to go back to Civil War again for our source material in the matter of Tony Stark's villainy. After the Superhero Registration Act was passed and a whole lot of superheroes went underground with their heroics, Iron Man turned to the Thunderbolts to track down those heroes and bring them to justice.
Can you help a brother out?
And not just any Thunderbolts. He stacked the team with the worst, most bloodthirsty villains he could find.
I'm doing what has to be done.
The very notion of forcing villains to do good is one that's been touched on many times in comics and movies. The morality of it is open for debate, but this instance was a little different. The best example of this is probably what happened to Spider-Man. Having seen the error of Iron Man's ways, Peter Parker decided it was time to jump ship and join Captain America's side of the debate.
You got hard, kid.
Tony didn't let him go without a fight though. Spidey managed to get away, albeit with some injuries, but that was nothing compared to what happened when Jack-O-Lantern and the Jester were assigned to track him down. In the ultimate irony, two of the webslinger's own villains were lawfully hunting him, fighting him, and gravely wounding him. He would have been killed had the Punisher not intervened. When the Illuminati exiled Hulk. One of the earliest actions the Illuminati group did is arguably one of the worst actions they've ever taken to date. While no superhero team is perfect and may come together with good intentions, there's always the potential for bad ideas. Exiling Hulk is one of those bad ideas. Under pressure from S.H.I.E.L.D. to find a solution to the Hulk problem, after the big green guy decimated Las Vegas, Tony called a meeting of the elite superheroes and made a drastic proposal.
Go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep.
He suggested that they find an uninhabited world somewhere in the cosmos, put the Hulk in a spaceship, and launch him away from Earth and toward that planet. There, he could live out his days in peace while the people of Earth would be safe from his rage. It didn't go quite as planned. Namor alone objected to the whole idea, pointing out that Bruce Banner was their friend and colleague and that it was wrong of them to do this to him. He and Tony had words and fists, and ultimately Namor walked away from the group before warning them that one day Hulk would return seeking revenge, and he would be in the right to do so. A few years later, he was proven correct.
Well, you're not wrong.
We all know that even the best of us can have a sliver of darkness, but when one of Marvel's most notable defenders of good is shown to have been a villain numerous times, it can make you question reality. What do you think of Tony's dark moments? Was he ever justified? Let us know in the comments below, and remember to like and share this video. Don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching.